Few days ago, NASA said in a tweet on September 12th, 2022, that the Artemis 1 lunar mission will go up no earlier than September 27th, with a second date of October 2nd as a backup. But while this was going on, China launched the Zhongxing-1E military communications satellite, and it was successful. Before continuing, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to hit the bell button and subscribe so you won't miss any of the next videos we release. The historic Artemis 1 trip to the moon has been postponed by NASA once more after engineers found a fuel leak in the rocket. The Artemis 1 mission will fly further into space than any other vehicle made for human astronauts has ever gone, despite not landing on the moon's surface. However, NASA said in a late September 12th update that it had abandoned plans for a launch on September 23rd, following a tanking test to verify the new seals are functioning properly being postponed from September 17th to September 21st. The agency claimed that date was no longer viable. The additional value of having more time to prepare for the cryogenic demonstration test and subsequently more time to prepare for the launch was taken into serious consideration while updating the dates, according to NASA. Additionally, it gives launch teams enough time to recover and additional time to restock the liquid oxygen and hydrogen tanks on the launch pad. The launch was originally slated for August 29th, but NASA postponed it when engineers ran into a number of obstacles, including difficulties chilling one of the rocket's engines in a nearby thunderstorm. Because of the fuel system leak, NASA again postponed the mission and rescheduled it for September 2nd. According to the CIA, the mission may now proceed in late September or it may be postponed until October. According to NASA, the earliest launch option is on September 27th, with October 2nd as a potential backup date. NASA is still planning to launch a new crew to the International Space Station on SpaceX's Crew 5 commercial crew mission on October 3rd from Launch Complex 39A, close to the SLS at Launch Complex 39B at the Kennedy Space Center. That backup date is still being reviewed. The launch window on September 27th begins at 11:37 a.m. Eastern and lasts for 70 minutes. If it were to occur that day, the Orion spacecraft would splash down in the Pacific Ocean on November 5th. The launch on October 2nd would occur inside a 109-minute window that begins at 2:52 p.m. Eastern Time, resulting in a splashdown on November 11th. According to NASA's announcement, engineers finished replacing the seals on the two liquid hydrogen lines and reconnected them to the core stage. Prior to the rescheduled cryogenic tanking test next week, the seals will be tested at room temperature this week. Even if the tanking test is successful, unless the Eastern Range provides a waiver to the FDS's approved lifetime, which expired on September 6th, NASA will not be able to move on with a launch without rolling back to the Vehicle Assembly Building to recertify the FTS. The Eastern Range is still considering NASA's request for a waiver, according to NASA. NASA is continuing to follow the Eastern Range's procedure for evaluation of the agency's request for an extension of the present flight termination system testing requirement and is providing additional information and data as needed, the agency said in a statement. The amazing facts about these things is that on NASA's major mission, there won't be any people, but there will be 3 astronauts, Helga, Zohar, and Munikin Campos. They are sophisticated mannequins, a word for human models used in scientific research, which are outfitted with sensors to measure how the human body reacts to spaceflight. As Munikin Campos sits in the commander's chair, Helga and Zohar will assess the impacts of radiation on women's bodies in space, while Helga and Zohar will also analyze how challenging a trip to the moon may be for future human crew members. Despite the fact that these mannequins may not appear to be very spectacular on their own, they will be essential to NASA's plans to create a new route to the moon and eventually take astronauts to Mars. They are also only one of several scientific experiments on board the mission designed to advance our knowledge of space exploration. Well, on the other hand, on Tuesday, the Wenchang spacecraft launch site in the southern island province of Hainan successfully launched a new Chinese satellite into orbit. Zhongxing-1E was successfully placed into the intended orbit after being launched at 9:18 p.m. Beijing time by a modified Long March 7 carrier rocket. It will offer top-notch transmission services for voice, data, radio, and television. This was the Long March series carrier rocket's 437th mission. According to Chinese state media, Zhongxing-1E, ChinaSat-1E, offers high-quality phone, data, radio, and television transmission services. The China Academy of Space Technology, or CAST, a significant spacecraft manufacturer that is a part of CASC, created the satellite. Throughout the year, Chinese businesses such as X-Space, Galactic Energy, Landspace, iSpace, and CAS Space also undertake their own launches. Zhongxing-1D, the first satellite in the series, was launched in November 2021. Notably, that flight launched from the southwesterly inland spaceport at Zhongxing using a Long March 3B. The Zhongxing-1E launches changeover in launch vehicle and spaceport, together with language in a press statement from CAST, point to a bigger, heavier satellite bus than previous satellites. In contrast to the fact that satellites are flown to Zhongxing, this satellite was also delivered by ship from Tianjin to Wenchang. The Long March 7A is a kerosene and liquid oxygen launch vehicle with 4 side boosters that is 60.1 meters long and 3.35 meters in diameter. It can carry up to 7 metric tons of payload to GTO. In March 2020, Long March 7A attempted its first launch, however it was unsuccessful. A year later, Cheyenne 9 was successfully placed in geosynchronous transfer orbit by the second trip. In December 2021, a pair of Cheyenne 12 satellites enclosed in an extended payload fairing were launched by the previous Long March 7A rocket. Compared to the previous Long March 3B, which can launch 5.5 tons to GTO, the Long March 7A is more powerful. The Long March 7A offers the benefit of launching from a lower latitude and avoids the costs and risks associated with the inland 3B launches, which have resulted in waste rockets falling on populated areas. In order to further increase the versatility of the rocket, CASC claimed in its Zhongxing-1E press release that it is creating a larger, broader fairing with a 5.2 meter diameter. China launched its 38th orbital mission on Tuesday. More than 50 launches have been scheduled by CASC for this year, and they are currently preparing to launch the third and last module for the Tiangong space station. If more are to be launched, then we are waiting for when Artemis 1 will launch theirs, and it's going to be a hell of a celebration. That's all for today's video, guys. Tell us your views in the comments section, and if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. See you in the next video. Cheers.